Hello and welcome everyone. So it's Mr. Galindo here. I'm just doing a quick tutorial on how to make a more advanced My First Car. So those of you that are doing this for a second time maybe, or who have done this in a younger year level, might be interested in following along with this tutorial. The end result of course will be that you'll hopefully have a bit more of an interest in creating complex 3D geometry through the patch or even the modeling workspace. A quick preview here of this kind of process where you're creating geometry which is hollow and two-dimensional and utilizing that to enable more interesting solutions to your design process. Now I've gone ahead and created a really quick way of starting this up with basically just two sketches that's got everything we need to get going. So to start with, let's move into the patch workspace, and so this is where I'd like you to make most of this section here. We're going to start with the Extrude tool. It adds depth to any planar face, so pretty straightforward. We've got a regular 32.5mm extrusion there. Reviewing that profile again, I'm going to now do a revolve, so it's a very similar process to normal with the axes here, obviously only setting that to 180 degrees, and you can see now how we've got this 2D kind of surface modeler. So if you go to the body section, you'll notice that you've got these surfaces rather than a 3D object such as these ones. This enables us to do lots of creative things. So having done this, I can use, say, the modify trim tool, which allows you to select an object to use to trim and then the section you want to trim. Using that twice, you can very quickly see how you can use that to remove that 2D surfaces again. Now this is handy because once you've got two surfaces that basically share a plane or an edge in this case, you can stitch them together. This allows you to actually connect the two surfaces, so we'll go from two bodies to one, like so. And that then means you can apply more common 3D geometry or 3D modify tools such as the fillet, which I'm just going to do there. Now this does not allow you to do as complex ones as we had before. So for example, I can't go all the way up to the 3mm fillet. Only about 2.9 I think I can get away with. So I'm going to leave that 2.9. I'm now going to actually close this all off. To do that, I'm going to use the patch tool. The patch tool should be used with not sketches, so I'm going to turn those off, but profiles like so. You can actually select tangent patches, so you can see how you might be able to use that to create a more smoother transition, or even a curvature patch, so an even smoother but even bulkier transition there. I'm going just for connected, so it's called a G0, G1 or G2. It's a mathematical construct, so that basically will enable a different kind of set profile to be used. You can see now how I've closed in these shapes. You can tell though that these are still 2D when you actually go through with the section analysis. These edges, yes, they have a three-dimensional shape, but they actually have zero thickness. Stitching them together now, you should be able to stitch all three to get pieces together, three bodies, to have one. That will convert that into a solid object, as you can see. And that's going to be handy for going through and routing out, removing, using a more regular model, and then create extrusion profile to remove material. So this direction I think is a minus 17.5 from the top of my head, and then doing the exact same thing using the back surfaces, and this one's I think a minus 20.5. Again, just trying to remember that, I think that's correct. I'm now going to add in also the holes, so modify hole, if I can spot it. Why is it under create? It was. We all get it wrong sometimes. So selecting the 2 points I put in with that second sketch, setting a 6mm diameter. Oops, not a depth. I want the depth to be through all, so 6mm diameter now. And there you go, there's the actual holes ready to go. The final hole to create, of course, would be the one at the back. Having said that, I generally would not do this one because I like to leave it to last, where if I create some complex wing structure, I can start from the surface here and extrude the whole way through, not worrying about the fact that I need to get it to start somewhere in the thickness of the canister chamber. So this position here is where I'd expect you to be up to very very quickly, considering that you have created the My First Car before. And this is where I'd like you to start trying to go back to that patch workspace and creating some more interesting wings. And this is your opportunity to have a bit of a play around. You can of course go to model and create a new form as well. And if you do that, you can then create, say, a plane or a quadrus. I tend to go with a box. Selecting geometry here, you can just create a simple little kind of box. And this will enable you to then create, more interesting geometry. So for example, I'm just going to go that way, and I'm going to increase the number of widths to it. And if I go to modify and I select this whole shape here, I should be able to drag. I might make sure I've gotten all of those. Frustratingly, there's actually shortcuts for all of this. I just haven't gotten as used to it yet as I could have. But if I insert that, for example, into the side of the object, we know that's definitely going to be created now. And then maybe I want to start working with the profiles here, trying to maybe use the line of symmetry so that I could then modify things a little bit neater. If we start with this a little bit lower, for example, lower again, and then that point there, but that point I'd also like to shift it back slightly, trying to just create some more interesting and unique kind of shapes, because this is the thing, is that often I want to get rid of that symmetry now, which I've forgotten how to do. Clear symmetry. There we go. You can then create obviously a lot more kind of interesting and complex geometry. Selection filter, it's always handy to be able to just select things like that, the face. I'm going to start by trying to just select the right section here. Nope, slightly more than that, perfect. Bring it out slightly, start to twist it a little bit more, bringing it up. But I like these profiles here to be using, well, some of this isn't quite working quite right. So for example, I don't want all of this material, so I'm going to merge some of these edges maybe, or I'm going to uncrease some of these sections, because there's some sections there which are now creating a negative kind of profile. Doesn't quite look like it though, so maybe that's fine actually in the end after all. Anyway, you get the idea. The whole point of this is to have a bit of a play around using a lot of different tools to try and create more complex geometry, which would enable you to have a more kind of rigorous but also complex outcome. So I've probably need to stop there and let you guys have a go. If you get stuck, of course you can ask for assistance. That is the point after all of me being there as your teacher. But give it a good go, try some of these new tools before you get too caught up in whether or not that's going to work. See what you can come up with. Finishing the form there. Being able to combine those two bodies if you wanted to. Obviously that needs a bit more work. Bringing that hole back in, because that section in there is way too far forward. So let's squish that right down. Yeah, that'll be inside now. Perfect. Combining the forms, filleting the forms. Huzzah! So, your turn now. Give it a good go.